The following program is intended for mature audiences.
I am going to give you, hopefully, not a boring story of how I got started in electronics in the first place. Well, hopefully this isn't going to become too long-winded, because I have a tendency to get a little long-winded at times, and I will try to keep this as brief as possible. First of all, I was born on Pearl Harbor Day in 1943, to be exact. I was doing a lot of reading in books from libraries, learned how to look at schematics and learn how to read the symbols and so forth. That was then about 1959 when I really started going with this. And at that time, I would be about 16, I would imagine, somewhere around that age. And one thing I made, and it was my kind of an experiment to see if it would work, is we lived in, when you live in the outskirts of a city, you had a lot of houses close together. Well, there was a kid my age that lived about 3 or 4 houses down on the same side of the street. But the houses were really close together and you could walk through the backyard. And what I had done is had experimented with 2 speakers which had transformers on them from All-American 5 radios they came out of. And I took the high impedance, the plate windings, grounded one end to a cold water pipe, did the same at the kid's end, and then ran one single thin piece of wire on the high end over. And we used to communicate. It picked up a lot of hum, but you could hear much better than going low impedance to low impedance. And I said, hey, that's pretty neat. I strung the wire across. There was a bunch of garages in the backyard, all close together you park your cars in. Well, it worked very well until one morning I went to try to talk to this kid from my bedroom 3 houses down to his, and we lost communication. Come to find out, the next morning when I went out there, the guy had to get his car out of the garage. The hairline wire, very thin wire, got broken and we lost communication. But that's just an example of things I wanted to do with electrical.
Here was my first workbench in 1959. A little 23.5 watt soldering iron over here. This desk here was all I had for a so-called workbench. And the chassis on the bench, I don't really recall what that was. And my transformers and chokes and capacitors and cigar box parts. That's all I had, and that was in my bedroom of my house when I lived in New Haven in 1959.
My dad used to pick up televisions on the George Washington birthday sale from some of these department stores in New Haven. And he would pick up these TV chassis for like 88 cents or $1, something like that. They were really ridiculously low prices. They didn't work, of course, and they were handyman specials. He'd bring them home and would put them on the kitchen table or a table there in the room, and he would work on the set and try to get it going, and with the tubes and so forth. And I would watch him and I would learn a little bit. But I couldn't fix a lot of them, and neither could he, because neither one of us had any training in that, other than a little book telling you what tube is going to cause this to not work, and what tube would do this, and so forth. And other than that, we had no knowledge of under chassis operation and so forth. I used to hang around every television and radio shop that would have me. Most of them would. I'd pick their brains and ask them a lot of questions, including my own problems at home trying to get my sets going. And most of the guys were okay. They even showed me how to solder properly, because I didn't know how to do that either very well back then. So I learned quite a bit just from that, and then of course I got books. And then I did much more reading when I took up a home correspondence course in 1962 from Coyne Electronics Institute, Chicago, Illinois. It's a home correspondence course with radio and television. And now this was just
My
tube
Coin
type stuff.
Electronics Home Correspondence course. I have 2 such books like this. How Television Grew Up. Quite informative. And I use these books for reference. This is my diploma in Coin Electronics Institute. This and $2 will get me a coffee most anywhere.
Very briefly, in the very early 60s, while I was still taking the course, as I said, I started taking the course in 1962, I was not driving. My dad used to take me out and I used to try to fix televisions. Back then you did not need a license to repair radio or TVs. Well, there was some sets I could fix and some I could not. And you're talking a $3 service call or some ridiculous price like that. So it was very discouraging for me, and I felt if I couldn't repair every single damn set, I'm not going into the business to do it. Simple as that. Sometimes you can't get things through this head, you know. And so I kept it as a hobby. And basically that is where I wanted to be. I felt that if I can't do the job 100%, that it was not going to be done as a business, and never became a business. I worked as a dishwasher in a restaurant back in the early 60s, and I acquired some test equipment. My first piece of test equipment that I had was a Lafayette tube tester, TE15 I believe the model number was, that I sent away to Lafayette Radio Electronics in Syosset, Long Island. I saved up my dishwashing money, mail ordered, sent a money order out, and got it on through mail order and received it. My second piece of test equipment back around 62 or somewhere in that vicinity was an ICO 232 VTVM, which I bought as a kit and put it together. Also, I bought that at a local electronic store in my area, which sold kits, and I bought that there. Then I bought an ICO 324 signal generator. The signal generator I still have. The ICO I do not, VTVM I no longer have, and I no longer have the Lafayette TE15. I sold that quite a while ago. This was my Lafayette TE15, my very first tube tester. This is the 324 ICO signal generator, 1962. When I was in grade school, I started getting books from the school library. They had some books on, you know, building crystal sets and everything. And of course, we didn't use the crystals like the, you know, the real genuine crystals with the cat's whisker and all that stuff. I built things from construction projects that were in the books, so, you know, like a germanium diode and stuff like that. I have tried the razor blade one, and that worked good. And I built quite a few crystal sets, winding the coils on toilet paper tubes, and even the Quaker Oats oatmeal boxes. And those worked quite well. And that's what really got me started. 100% goes in, and 90% comes out. So I only absorb 10%. So anyways, but I enjoy the hobby. I really do. And I think that's just about it. I've bored you long enough.